evening, everybody. So tonight on our Facebook Live, we have Divya, who has agreed to come and talk to us tonight on something that is close to all our hearts at the very moment. Divya is a yoga teacher and a mindfulness facilitator. And she has a new book that's come out in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic and lockdown, which is called Finding Peace in Difficult Times. So Divya, thanks for joining us tonight. It's lovely to have you here. And we're going to talk a little bit about finding peace in difficult times. My word, it could not be more timely, could it? I mean, your book offers ways to reconnect and find calm. I think we could all do with that at the moment, but why is it so important right now?
So, full disclosure, I wrote the book last year, well, finished it at the back end of last year. And it came out then also in a time where I think very relevant. I think we're going through a period of whoever you are, wherever you live, of feeling overwhelmed. We know that the being in an information age is partly to do with it. There seems to be a feeling of life feeling busier and faster, more stimulated. And there's an introduction in the book where I sort of just give an overview of some of the things that maybe contribute to this idea that so many of us feel this, no matter what we're doing and no matter where we're born. And then there's a paradox, because alongside this feeling of life itself feeling busier and fuller, actually we live in a time where we're more aware about our mental health and our well-being, and there's lots of information available, certainly in certain places anyway, and people seem to be more ready to look after themselves and not just their bodies, but what's going on in their minds. And yet, and I know this from personal experience and through my professional life and just being out in life, and I live in London and it's all around you, and yet we know that stress levels reportedly are higher than they've ever been. The latest, there's a couple of statistics, very recent, is that stress is currently one of the main contributors to either illness or a feeling of not being well. And going on from that, they say by 2030, which it sounds long away, but not that long away, the prediction is that mental stress, so I think that's quite relevant, will be the biggest cause of illness and again, feeling of not being well. And so there's this paradox of, we know more we can take care of ourselves, or at least have that option, and yet everyone's sort of feeling this or being susceptible to it, myself included. So that was one of the main prompts for starting to write this book. The other prompt was that against a backdrop actually of being interested in this subject, as I am and have been for a long time, what has helped me find peace in my life, what seems to have worked, or might be still helping me, what seems to work and help others, and that might again have been in a professional capacity through my teaching, or just through friends or things that I've read, amazing anecdotes, this sort of thing, and thinking it might be helpful just to pull that information together. It's quite disparate. So I'm sitting here in my front room, and there's notebooks all around me, and they're literally filled with notes that I've scribbled at the end of a day, or in the middle of a day, or even in the middle of the night, things that have just struck me as helpful or inspiring. And it could be a tool or a story or a practice. The common denominator being something about finding peace or ease or dealing with a situation. So there's, there was that. And so feeling that the container of a book is a good place to pull that together, and also help me make some sense of it. I know a lot of writers say this, that they write to understand something better themselves or bring some cohesion to it. in doing that, it struck me, if it's not too presumptuous to say this, that, well, if it's helped me, who knows, someone else out there could benefit from even one of these tools, or just, again, the bringing together of these ideas. I'll come to the current moment in a moment, but so this is just the last few months of last year. But I also just wanted to maybe mention, because a lot of people know me as you kindly introduced me as well as yoga and meditation. And in fact, where I live, when I walk down the street, I get people saying, "Oh, there's the yoga lady." And I'm, oh, okay, there's a yoga lady. So yeah, you know, I love yoga, but no buts. But I'm interested in lots of things. And where I'm going with this is that, you know, there's amazing science out there that tells us what goes on in our minds and bodies when we're stressed. Meanwhile, there's amazing ancient wisdom and there to be mined on, again, what happens in our minds and bodies and how to meet life and its difficulties. So there's the science, there's the history, there's the philosophy, there's and then there's just what you and I will know from, you know, a friend and how they got through something difficult, or maybe an app that someone has and that helps them. And so, but what I find and still find is that these things are kept quite separated, and say, unless you're in the scientific field, you might not know these things. And, you know, unless you know, practice something like meditation, then you might not know, you know, what's going on in your body when you meditate. So I wanted to pull those strands together. It sounds like quite an ambitious project, but pull it together, but in a way that would still feel accessible. So no matter where you come from at this, no matter your experience, no matter your, you know, whether you're new to the idea of mind, body, spirit, or science, or whether you're having a difficult time or not, having a resource that, you know, could show you some amazing things about how your mind and body works, and possibly some tools as well, either to help you in the current moment, or, you know, for the future. So this was all rattling around, and so the book sort of just came together. Well, not sort of, you know, these things take a bit of work, but yeah, but that's the sort of nuts and bolts of the book itself. And I suppose, in a nutshell, I'm now speaking a bit in hindsight, but I'm sort of pin drop middle-aged now, so there's enough experience to look back upon, sort of think, this helped, this didn't, not in a negative way, but, you know, or seeing commonalities of things that do seem to help, and, you know, things that, you know, and as a writer, you have to have a bit of confidence, I think, and if you're putting out something, you know, to believe in it, and it can come across, you know, if you actually do sense that. So it felt like the time was right to pull that together, but also bringing it to the here and now. I also wanted to have something there that I could still return to again and again. Now, whether just in its format as a reminder, you know, this is how I can bring myself back to presence, or this tool once helped me when I was, you know, stressful, but also inspiration as well. So I think I mentioned this somewhere near the end of the book, that one of the ways I deepen my understanding of life isn't necessarily acquiring more information or more tools and techniques, although there's still always more to learn, you know, in every conversation we have, but is through when we repeat something or return to something in that moment, which is fresh, you have a new experience of it. And so having that resource as your sort of go-to, as my own go-to, and then maybe offering that and seeing if it helps others. So the book as it is, pretty much as it is, there's a few little bits added, was I wrote by sort of the end of last year, and now we sort of get into more sort of writer territory, but sending that out to publishers and with no sort of presumptions. And then I think around sort of February, March of this year, well, the pandemic had just broken out, and believe you me, I was, you know, using these tools, a lot of the tools that are in the book, and feeling that I was actually quite glad to have have them written down as well. So I mentioned one of the things that comes up a lot in the book is when you need something the most is often the most difficult time to even reach for it, let alone, you know, try and practice. So again, just having something there, and absolutely, since, you know, February, March, April, May, June, where are we now? I think we've all lost track of time, but there's been well, we know that the pandemic has had its own story and its own flow, and I think each of us has had that. Just talking to, you know, friends and family, I don't think anyone's sort of felt just one way throughout. And there's a line in the book about having lifeboats to reach for, or, you know, just little rocks in the ocean. And so that's certainly what I have found, that on a certain given day or a certain week, I might be, you know, feeling more tension, or my sleep might be affected, or what have you. And, you know, the tools in the book really have come to life again and supported. And my hope is that even if, you know, everything is not going to meet everyone in any given time, but even if something can help us through a difficulty, or if something speaks to us and helps us as an individual feel presence of mind, I think that's invaluable right there. And if we understand why and how, so there's each so not a long book, but each of the chapters includes some science. It's the buzzword, some science, just sort of explaining a little bit about what's going on when we do the tool or the practice, and why it has that effect. And that in itself can be very, you know, motivating for us to maybe just not read or think about something, but actually enact it. Now, what was the original question? No, but so yeah, but that's the sort of story of the books, and then obviously the books that come out now. Yeah.
Well, I've had the privilege of being able to read your book, and I enjoyed it very much. As you say, it's very accessible and it's very comprehensive, and I think it will appeal to people, whatever their stand or their main stance is, because it does help, I think, many people to kind of understand what they're going through. You know, through the science. And others, they just want the practice and the time-worn and time-honoured practices, and both are present in the book. And as I said initially, clearly it's important because it's such a stressful time, and so many people's mental well-being is being affected by the current position. But before we get on to some of the stuff that's in the book, why do you think, you touch on the fact that even before COVID, we lead such stressful lives? How did we ever get into this position?
I think it would be helpful if there's more dialogue about this, and not from a negative point of view. That's something I try not to be in the book. I try not to come from the basis of this and oh this and oh no this, but, you know, this is how life is at the moment. So I'm not an anthropologist, I'm not a historian, but some common sense tells me that we are where we are through combination of, I think, the technological advances, which just makes connection a good that we have, and a good thing. And actually, where, you know, can we imagine how we'd feel if we didn't have technology in COVID? You know, how would we be connecting with anybody? Or, you know, with the isolation would be next level. But obviously it's a two-way street, comes with that, and then the overload and the feeling of needing to be constantly connected, and, you know, however quotes mindful you might be. So I think that has a huge amount to do with it, and then all the repercussions of that. So, you know, if we're going to open ourselves up to connection and information, well, we're going to need a lot more, I think, internal skills of not just external, you know, blocks here or what apps we have, or which is all very important and relevant. I think we need to learn internally how we navigate that, you know, what we let in and not. I'm someone who prefers to sort of know things and then deal with them, rather than you know, I'm going to turn off my phone and I'm going to turn away. But we're all you know, individual, and we all have our own sort of inclinations. But yes, I think the technology piece, but I think also yeah, with that, the more availability of information, but even things like a few things that I've read about this do track things back a little bit to the industrial age and things changing from then on, and really sort of simple things like you know, it used to be that nature would dictate a lot more how we live because we had no choice. We're overriding that, you know, left, right and centre. Whether it's, you know, more light and you know, we can do incredible things. We can live alive and do things 24/7, and so we do, you know, and so we're no longer sort of confined to, you know, bigger and larger forces. And, you know, it's a testament to human intelligence and, you know, and curiosity, you know. So that's where I think it's, you know, we shouldn't try and look at this negatively. But yeah, I just think with more information and more stimulation and more accessibility will come this. So perhaps, and I do bring up the internet in the book. I couldn't not.
Yes.
In fact, the original title of the book, and there's no reason you'd know this, was Unplug. So a little bit, yeah. And so, you know, how do we? but then reconnect. Yeah. So
much more than just unplug, isn't it? Now this book.
Yeah.
For people who are short on time or who want to get a flavour of what they could expect from your book, you give them so many tools, but what are the basics? What are the very few, you know, the basics to help people through tough times? What are those core foundations that they should be looking at?
Okay, thank you for asking that. So I'm going to answer it, but my first cop-out answer is I think everything in the book is fairly basic in a positive way, not in a it won't work way or go deep, in that that was one of the premises of you know, whatever your experience, you know, whatever your situation, it's a sort of top line ABC approach to, you know, so but yeah, I like your question. So I think trusting actually that you have an inner capacity to meet difficulty. So trusting that it's there even if you don't feel it in that moment, or whatever kind of self-talk you have. So we do each have it within us. A lot of us get inspired by if we see how someone else manages it. I'll speak for myself. So a lot of reading, a lot of training, a lot of courses has only got me so far. When I've seen others embodying it, that has had a real impact. But I think that can also be embodied through, for example, the tone of this book, which is saying, this is available to you. It really is. And you can sort of trust that you have that within you. Compassion is a huge part running through it. And we could talk all night about that. We could talk about it in terms of societal compassion, individual compassion. For now, what I would say is that I would break down the compassion in three ways. This is just coming to me now, so let's see how this comes out. So compassion for whatever it is you're dealing with. So that could be, I'm so busy in my mind. So compassion doesn't mean that's okay, accept it, forget about it. And it doesn't mean, oh, poor me, I've got a busy mind. Compassion is allowing. So the compassionate response, and I'm choosing something sort of on the one end of the spectrum of difficulty for the moment, but you could look at it the other way of, what am I dealing with right now? Well, I've just lost somebody, you know, and I do have friends in my life at the moment going through that. So the actual nugget of whatever it is that you're feeling the energy of, compassion for that. Then compassion for the energy around that, the difficulty of that, what that then evokes. So it's making me feel this way, or so it could be internal, but it could also be compassion for, well, it's going to affect my children this way, or compassion for you know, or how's this going to affect my career, or what have you. So it's the thing, compassion for, and compassion for the potential implications. So we're not denying or running away from whether it's the realities of the life situation or what we feel. That's a bedrock. But if we just left it at that, then we could just, you know, we'd end up kind of stewing in that. But I find, as have many others, and since the dawn of time, so, you know, hence we're just sharing on this helpful information, that that's a good bedrock to then see how we can meet that and maybe channel that energy, hold that energy, dissolve that energy. So then we can move or think or feel with more awareness. The third compassion is if and when we feel ready to, and I'll just stick with those two examples for now. If now I feel I'm in a bit more of a steady, open position to deal with my busy mind, or I accept that I've lost someone and this is what I feel and this is what's going on. So I'm in that place. And say I pick a tool, and it could be a tool from my book or a piece of advice or something I know that makes me feel better. What happens when, even knowing that, you don't do it or it doesn't work? Right. And that's a really big part of the book, so you'll know because you've read it, is a lot of the book talks about challenges. Challenges not from life, but challenges to us doing what we know will help us. And that was a missing piece I found. So, you know, there's fabulous books about how to de-stress, how to relax, you know, again, ancient wisdom or practical skills. But I'm always one of those annoying people in classes or courses that say, but, you know, you know, yeah, but I feel this, or, you know, but, you know, I'd never get round to it, or I can't bring myself to it, or, you know, and what have you. But if we can bring compassion to the very obstacles to the things that we know might help us, something also happens there. And it's different. It's not an excuse, because we're still on the path of meeting and holding what we have. We're at no point here are we sort of closing the box on it or turning away. It's a continual sort of flow, if this makes sense. And again, I'm sort of sharing what has helped me, what seems to help others I've met or worked with in my life, and then who knows, you know, wider than that. But I find if we can acknowledge, and this is very, you know, relevant to the times now, if we acknowledge what the obstacles are to our well-being or community well-being, rather than override that and try and jump, you know, immediately to some outcome, well, there's a lot more authenticity for a start, and you don't have those blocks, you know, still there, whether they're within you or beyond you, and you know, you grow, you learn things actually on the way.
Yes, so there's a lot of stuff in your book about the emotional side and the mental side of things. There's also some stuff in there that I think will resonate with a lot of people at the moment. There's a whole chapter devoted to sleeplessness. And one of the things that I'm hearing, and I know from friends, not only from things I've read in the newspaper, is that during this lockdown, a lot of people had a great deal of trouble sleeping, and in part it's because I think things seem so much worse in the dead of night.
Yeah.
Our fears seem so much worse. It's very hard in a very short interview, I know, and I know that you'll be taking questions later, Divya, on Facebook Live, but any tips for people who are suffering? I know you have a whole chapter on it, but something that you think would really help people through when they're troubled in the depths of the night.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for asking this. You're right. And there's the sleeplessness. I've also heard reports of people having wild dreams or thoughts.
Yes, I have. Yes.
Reactions. So again, actually, us acknowledging this openly, and it sounds almost too simple, and say someone listening to this right now hears me saying, well, you know, acknowledging that this is how it is for you, they'll be like, no, tell me, you know, get me the magic pill. And I get it, because as I've put in the book, I have totally been there. But again, there is something, words often defies these things, you know, but the realities of it, which is why it's a practice. So practicing acknowledging what is happening for you. So if that is difficulty sleeping, or in that moment in the night, or even when you put your head on the pillow, really allowing for what is there. And I promise I'm still learning this, and realizing when I think I am and when I'm not. There's I'm using my hands all over the place, but there's something that sort of drops within you, and it's that trying to keep it together, which includes I'm trying to sleep, and why, you know, this energy or this, and it could be here, or then worrying about the morning. Well, if this is the case, and my shoulders just dropped automatically there. So that's one element, but a tool. Certainly working with our breathing, and there's tons at the moment about breath work and all of this. Actually being very gentle with your breathing, and actually being with your breathing rather than trying to control your breathing is, I think, more helpful in times of when you're tired, and also when you're trying to actually quieten the mind. So there's a lot of certain breath techniques and breath work to enliven us or open the mind and creativity. At night we want to quieten things down. So if we go too heavy-handed, and actually with any technique, you can get sort of a burst of maybe, you know, just knock you out, what have you, literally, like something tangible might. But that's sort of, you know, allowing for what is and being gentle with your breathing. And I give 2 or 3 specific breathing techniques. One, for example, is dropping our head to our belly. So literally going from my head to my belly, maybe even with my hand on my abdomen. And rather than, right, I'm going to breathe in and out of my belly, or I'm going to count these number of breaths, how I am whilst I'm there with awareness at my belly, being gentle. You've got the feel of it, of your body. There's, you know, if you're here, you're breathing. So however much you're breathing, it doesn't matter. And just being with that sort of a bobbing along action, you know, something just bobbing along, is actually very lulling for the energy in the body. You're also not pushing anything. You're not denying anything. It is at the very least, it's relaxing, it's reassuring, and the momentum of it can actually match the ideal brainwaves that then help you fall into sleep. Because in sleep, our brainwaves are still actually active. They're just steadier and calmer. So you're sort of emulating that through the breath. I mentioned, I know we're going to move on, but I mentioned also in the book about how rather than shut, so that's a way of quietening the mind, but it might be actually you engage with the mind. So there's another technique. It's rather than saying, oh, stop having the thoughts or stop having the feelings, it's kind of like, okay. and then having a conversation, but then I bring up what you might want to have a conversation about. And I actually find it's very, very helpful. It's not actually a tool that I've come across before, so I'm going to be very interested to see how people find it. But I'll have a pleasant conversation with my mind, and I might bring up something pleasant that I can remember, or I might make something up, you know. And again, there's just something about that energy that, because if your body's tired, it does want to eventually take you there. You're just trying to get your mind on board as well. So yeah, there's a couple of things there, and there's a few more, as you say, in the book.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many more in the book. You're doing it modest. There's tons and tons of tips and fixes, which is fantastic in the book. And the thing I just thought we ought to stress to those who are listening today is that this book is specifically for finding peace in difficult times, and that will resonate in the COVID period, but it's also equally applicable when this period is over and we go back to something approaching a more normal way of life. That's something we ought to really stress, isn't it, in the book? what do you think people are going to be turning to in the future? What is it that they're going to need help with in the main? And can your book provide the answers to that?
Oh. So, you know, one thing I'm really a advocate for is individuality. So I'd love it if this book gives people, again, the inner energy to find what works for them, to help them have that base platform or something to return to. So steadiness of mind, compassion for yourself, but compassion for the world is a great launch pad, and B, something to have continually, for then discovering and knowing what I need and maybe what those around you need, and also how you can be of service to others. I do think alongside that, the awareness or living in the present moment, we've heard this phrase so much, I think is going to be ongoing, very significant for most of us, if not all of us. So how can I be present in daily life? What does that even mean to me? And sustaining that. So as well as dropping into present mind awareness and presence, how can I bit by bit actually make that more my norm? So rather than just something I go to, either, as you say, when I'm in difficulty or feel restless, how can that be a little bit more of how I am anyway? And you'll know through all your experience and who you are that there's a belief that actually our norm is to live in the present moment. That is our actual natural state. We could, you know, chat about that as a whole, and you know, wherever you come at that or not. Certainly it's a sort of blank canvas. Often they use the image of a sky. You know, we are basically the sky, and everything going on in our mind and in our life is all the you know, the weather of it. So how can we be a bit more and more in that place? But not to counter individuality, and also to use challenge, not to as a negative thing. So, but actually for growth. You know, so you know, every time something challenges our mind, our life, our heart, or awareness, you know, how can that actually be something to practice on? You know, and then you know, then there's a growing and a sense of freedom even in that.
That's great. Well, Divya, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. For all of those, I'm sure, who will be wanting to ask you questions shortly, you're going to be available from the questions in Facebook Live. You'll be coming to those and answering those for our readers.
Yeah.
Just so that everyone knows how they can get hold of this, the book is Finding Peace in Difficult Times, and it's an e-book currently, I believe, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah. Fingers crossed, physical, but soon.
Yes. But we'll be following, hopefully, but
yeah,
watch this space on that one.
Yeah.
Okay, and thank you so much for taking the time, Divya, to talk to us. I know that there are lots and lots of tips and fixes in there that I will be using in future.
Thank you.
Okay, and thank you so much for all of this, and perhaps people can now put their questions to you.
I'll head to the Facebook.
Lovely, thank you so much. Bye, Divya.
Bye-bye.